Welcome to episode 6 of PreDental Talk presented by Crack DAT. This episode is a little special because we are doing our interview with a Navy HPSP dentist and YouTuber, Dr. Monica Lee, aka harrrMONICA on YouTube. So that's pretty exciting. In addition to this podcast, she has also graciously accepted the offer to come join us on an Instagram live Q&A session that we alluded to a couple times in the podcast. We finally narrowed down a date and time, Friday, October 30th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. So you can come and pose your questions. And if you can't make it at that time, the best thing to do would to be follow both of our accounts. Her Instagram account is Super Monica World, and our Instagram account is Crack the DAT, but with periods in between. So it'd be crack.the.dat. And if you follow our page, you'll be able to comment below some questions you would like for us to ask her, and that way you can access the full Q&A session at your convenience, but still have your question asked. So keep an eye out for that. We alluded to a couple times in the podcast, so enjoy. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Monica Lee, or you might find her online, harrrMONICA with 3 R's. I had to double check. It's actually right up there in the left-hand corner right there. So give the floor to you if you don't mind just introducing yourself real quick.
All right. Hey, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are right now. So yeah, my name is Dr. Monica Lee, and I am originally from the Sunshine State of Orlando, Florida. I moved to Atlanta, Georgia to complete basically college and things like that. So I got my bachelor's in biological science at Georgia Tech, and then I took a gap year to just kind of focus, study the DAT, make sure all my application things were in order. And then I got accepted to the University of Louisville School of Dentistry in 2015. Did my 4 years there, graduated, and now I'm a Navy dentist.
For the listeners out there watching this podcast or listening to this podcast rather too, I think it's awesome for you guys to know that, Dr. Lee has agreed with us to join for a Instagram live AMA Ask Me Anything session, which we will be scheduling soon. So perhaps if you follow us at Crack the DAT Instagram page and Facebook, our handle is crack.the.dat. And Dr. Lee, if you perhaps wanted to share if you have an Instagram handles, I think it's up there in the left-hand corner. Is that your thing or is it different?
Oh, this one. So yeah, this is my YouTube channel.
Right.
The reason why there's 3 R's is because 1 R was taken and so was 2 R's. So at the time when I was like 3 R's, there we go. So that's my YouTube channel. My Instagram page is Super Monica World, like Super Mario World. I'm a big Mario fan. So yeah, Super Monica World is my IG handle.
Awesome. Yeah. So like I said, stay tuned on both of these channels and accounts. We'll be sending some more information in the coming days and weeks about our Instagram live AMA session. And as well, we're going to be doing a special discount and raffle promotion where you could win 100% off a Crack DAT course. And if you are not the lucky winner for that, you will definitely be eligible to get a 15% discount, and all the details on that will be shared in the future. And so thank you again for coming. And I mean, there's so much I'd love to talk to you about, but I think the main 2 things that we would love to focus in on it is, first of all, you have a great YouTube channel, and also you are a Navy HPSP scholar and now a dentist. So perhaps we'll start with the YouTube thing. I was just wondering, before you applied to dental school, like, did you always have an interest in multimedia projects or videos, or how did you get started with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually started YouTube when I was like 15 or 16, like those awkward high school years. And the reason why I got started was because, I don't know, like, like the OG YouTubers like Kev Jumba, Michelle Phan, like, those people. Kev Jumba, I had like a little bit of a YouTube crush on him. And he's no longer making videos anymore. But yeah, he had like this contest where it was like, where you basically had to edit your video to make it seem like you're having a phone conversation with him. And so I made this really horribly edited video up on YouTube, and I was like, this is fun. And at the time, of course, I was living at home, and my younger brother, we were like best friends. So we would just make like honestly really dumb skits and videos and record them and upload them on YouTube. But those are no longer on my channel because
Mm.
they are very cringy.
Yeah.
They're locked in the deep vaults of my hard drive. They will never be opened again. But so yeah, that's kind of how I got started, and I kind of continued that through dental school. It was kind of hard for me to find the time and dedicate it, but now that I'm done with school and kind of working, I kind of do it as a hobby now.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, yeah, I would say, personally from my experience, I probably have some cringeworthy videos too, but luckily they're for mostly school projects. I didn't have the bravery like you to post them on the internet. So kudos to that. But it definitely comes across. I mean, especially watching your videos on the HPSP, it's well produced and, very informative. And that's why, I reached out to you in the first place. So without further ado, I'd probably like to transition into that. Just regarding the HPSP, first things first, for people who don't know or not familiar with the program, if you could just kind of give a brief overview of what you did.
Yeah, of course. So HPSP stands for the Health Professional Scholarship Program. And you'll find in the military we use a lot of acronyms. But so HPSP, it's basically a quote unquote full ride scholarship that the military offers. So I was accepted with the Navy HPSP, but the Air Force and the Army also provide a scholarship as well from those branches. And basically, they cover your school tuition throughout your 4 years of school, unless you're going to like UOP, which is like 3 years, right? And during that time, your main focus is to just graduate as a dentist first, and then the Navy officer stuff comes after. But yeah, so basically, after you're done with that, you now have an obligation to serve back. So if they covered 4 years of your school, then you serve 4 years of active duty and then 4 years of reserves after that.
Awesome, awesome. So yeah, we'll definitely get into more in depth on a lot of those things, but I would probably ask first of all is how did you first get interested in the program, and what were your reasons to apply in the first place?
Sure. So I actually had a friend that was a year ahead of me in dental school at the time. And so this was during my gap year. And she was mentioning that she pursued the Navy HPSP route. And I was like, well, what is that? So she kind of told me about it. She's like, well, they cover your school, you serve active duty afterwards, and all these things. So that's how I kind of got my feet wet with that, just like knowing that something like that exists out there. And then, of course, I talked to her more. I started talking with my recruiter and working with her a little bit closely. And sorry, there's like a motorcycle here, but and then I started doing, some research online and things like that. And that's how I kind of got my feet wet initially.
And so when you were applying, were you always focused on the Navy? Because I know you mentioned the Air Force and the Army. So was it only Navy, or were you interested in the others at different points?
Yeah, so I personally just applied to the Navy HPSP. So I kind of put all my eggs in one basket. I think at the time of application, I wasn't like 100% dead set, like, oh, I really want to do military dentistry. For me, it was more like, okay, if this happens, like it was meant to be. And if it doesn't, then I'm okay with that too. But I guess I just got a little bit lucky on how that turned out.
Awesome. So one thing I think students might need to know is the timeline of the application process. Like, for example, that's something I'm interested in. I'm in probably a similar position that you were when you were thinking about applying, in that I'm applying to dental schools right now, and I got contacted by a recruiter. So I didn't realize that the application process it can be before you get into dental school. I thought it was something you worry about once you're in, but I was wondering if you could talk about your timeline specifically, as to when you applied and everything.
Yeah, of course. So, like I said, I was kind of researching during my gap year, kind of getting my dental school application together and things like that. So, you are basically going to apply to the HPSP concurrently or even earlier, I would recommend before you start doing your dental school applications, just because there's a lot of administrative paperwork, things like that. And so, um, yeah, so basically you're going to contact your recruiter. They're going to guide you through all this, give you the information you need to make your decision. And it's just kind of like dental school applications. You're going to submit, like if you're committed to doing this, you're going to submit your GPA, your transcripts, your DAT scores, your letters of recommendation, all these things. And once you get past the interview, so you may be able to go for an in-person interview or a phone interview. And so it's very similar to how you're kind of going through the dental school application. And so, of course, in order to be accepted into the program, you have to be accepted into dental school. And that's just kind of how it goes hand in hand together.
Awesome. So I know you're talking about the application and all the different steps, and it's very comprehensive, just like a dental school application. So I was wondering, particularly if there were any significant differences or anything that made your HPSP application stand out, whether it's the letters of recommendation you sought from different people or your personal statement, how you rework that, just how you would make a HPSP application stand out.
So yeah, I mean, for me personally, I don't have a strong affiliation with, the US military. My parents were both born in South Korea, so I'm a second generation Korean American that was born here. And so for me, I didn't have a strong military tie. And I thought, maybe that would kind of stand out against me, so to speak. But I think the strongest point in my application was the personal essay. So just like dental school, you're going to write your personal essay, except I think the main difference is that, dental schools are receiving thousands of applications and they're probably not able to sit down and read through all those essays, maybe like the first paragraph or so. But with the military scholarships, it's a lot more limited. They kind of throw out a number around maybe like 50 to 60 a year, but it really just depends on how many people get out of active duty, the needs of the Navy, budgeting and whatnot. And so they might actually have the time to sit down and read through your personal essay. And so for me, I kind of took that opportunity to kind of spill out, like, this is why I want to pursue the military with my dentistry. And I was just very honest in my personal essay. I told them, I don't have a military background, but I am super willing to seek this adventure and I want to pay back my service to this country. I think that's probably one of the most patriotic things you could do, to give back to your country, right? And at the same time, of course, it's nice that they cover your full tuition, so you're debt free after you graduate, which is immense, right? And so I think just being very honest and showing your vulnerabilities, and just that you don't have like this crazy, like, oh, like I have a grandfather that, served in World War II. Like, it wasn't anything like that. And I think it's just being transparent and saying like, yeah, I'm going to be new, but I'm willing to take on this challenge, kind of thing.
Awesome,
That was a long
awesome.
answer. Sorry.
No, it's good to hear because,
Yeah.
I think some applicants, they might have a similar concern that, maybe their connections aren't as strong. So it's awesome to hear that it's somebody who's perhaps like their family is new to service and they're still able to carve a way to success. So that's definitely awesome to hear. One other thing I would ask is, so you were accepted, and I know you mentioned earlier that throughout dental school, I don't think there's much involvement, but just if you could talk about between the time you're accepted and between the time you graduate. Obviously the goal is to graduate from dental school, but so were there any kinds of things you had to do to fulfill your end of the scholarship other than attending dental school?
So mostly no.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get accepted to the scholarship in the program, your main goal is to make sure you graduate as a dentist. And so in terms of fulfilling like military obligations during your 4 years, there's really not that much. Okay. Some people, if they have like a large summer break or a winter break or whatnot, they're able to go to Officer Development School, ODS. And I'm sure we'll kind of talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, some people might have a 5-week gap where they can go take care of that, go to, basically it's boot camp for officers, rather than wait until you graduate and then go to the 5-week program. So really your main obligation is to make sure you're passing all your courses, getting through all your graduation requirements and graduating on time and passing your boards, so that, once they see you as a dentist, they can start shaping you into an officer in the Navy.
Awesome. Awesome. So when you were talking about the ODS, I'm guessing then that starts, if you don't do it earlier, that would pretty much just start the summer after you're done dental school?
Most likely. So you're gonna get contacted by a detailer, and this is someone that's in charge of assigning orders to, you're gonna go to this duty station for this long, or you're gonna go to here. So you're gonna work pretty closely with him or her, and usually they contact you during like your D4 year. And so originally I was told that I was going to go in August. I graduated in May 2015. So I was like, well, what am I going to do for, like 3 months? I'm not going to be able to get a job for 3 months. I guess I could go home for a little bit. But then 2 weeks prior to June, he called me and he was like, hey, we have a spot open in June. You want to go? And I'm just like, I guess. So it was a little bit hectic for me personally because I was like, well, I need to start, finding out my lease. Like, what do I do with my car? Moving, finding an apartment in San Diego. And so it was a little bit crazy, but normally, they give you a little bit of time to either go in like June, July, August in the later months too. Mm-hmm.
So when you get sent to your ODS, is that always in the same place as you'll end up practicing, or is there just a certain place where everyone goes and then you get dispersed to wherever you're going to go?
It's the latter.
Okay.
So yes is in Newport, Rhode Island. It's just like a big command that's basically boot camp for officers coming in. And so you do your 5 weeks of training. So ODS is 5 weeks.
Mhm.
And then after that, I mean, you should by then know where you're going at least. Maybe you won't know exactly what clinic you're assigned to, but I knew I was going to be in San Diego for the year after I graduated from ODS.
Okay, yeah, that's actually another thing I was going to ask you was obviously people might want to know in terms of being able to pick where you want to go, what were your offers as to where you could go and practice? And did you feel that your first choices were honored, or was it a bit of compromise?
Good question. Yeah. So again, during your D4 year, the detailer is going to contact you and you have to decide before you graduate. So do I want to pursue a residency through a GPR or an AGD? Okay. Or do you want to pursue a credentialing tour? Basically, the main difference is you're going to get training, and depending on where you get stationed, what clinic, who you're working with, it kind of dictates how that program is. So if you do a GPR or an AGD residency, you go through the 1 year of training, but it counts as a neutral year. So if you have 4 years that you need to pay back through active duty, well, it's not going to count towards your 4 years. It's just kind of a year of training. Whereas the credentialing tour is what I did in San Diego. And it's not a residency per se, it's just more of, getting started in working right away, getting your credentials, getting up to speed with your dental skills, just getting comfortable so that when you go to your next duty station, you're like ready to roll kind of thing. So that one, it does count towards your 4 years. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so
Okay. No, sorry, go ahead.
I know I didn't answer your question at all. I'm just like, oh my God. But okay, so you decide what you want to do, right? And then the detailer is going to ask, okay, where do you want to go? And he's going to have he or she is going to have either a list of like regions you can apply to or specific clinics that you want to get into. For me, it was a region. So my first choice, I put Southwest, and then second, I put West Coast, and then third, I put East Coast. And so I thought I was going to probably be placed on the East Coast, but then I like lucked out for some reason and got placed in San Diego, which was like my number one place I wanted to go to. So it's just kind of like a huge luck of the draw, depending on like what's available and, what the detailer basically tells you.
Okay, awesome. So do you know, for example, if you were to pick East Coast, like, is there a couple of places you could be placed, or is it multiple, or is it not known at the time you're applying?
You don't know because
Okay,
again, it's based on availability. You
right.
know, there's major bases. You have like Norfolk, Virginia. You have Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, which is where I'm at. You have a couple places in Florida. There's South Carolina. There's Georgia. So there's all these bases, but it depends on if the clinic actually needs another dental officer there or not. So it just kind of depends.
Awesome. And so earlier you were mentioning about being able to choose whether you wanted to pursue a residency or not. So I was wondering, in terms of the residency, when you're doing your neutral year, is that also with the Navy, or can that be done with another school, or how does that work?
Yeah, so your first year of residency, it's going to be through the Navy.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Okay. Great. So my next question was about, particularly about the ODS training,
Mhm.
and um, did you ever feel perhaps discouraged or challenged when you first started? Because obviously, especially you not coming from a military background at all, and your family maybe not knowing what it was like. I was
Mhm.
just wondering your attitude, maybe heading into it, and your experience there. Did you feel that you were able to fit in quite early?
So it was rough initially. It was just, so used to living your civilian life, and then you
Hmm.
get ODS, and they're like yelling at you, telling you what to do, which you're not used to. You're like independent dental student, like trying to make your own decisions, and then you have like people yelling at you. So that was definitely like, oh, well, that's weird. Um, it's definitely different. You're not going to be in your comfort zone. Okay, like you're kind of in an old building, you're going to have to learn terminology, how to stand in line, how to polish your shoes, how to keep your uniform like nice and tight. So like all these things are completely brand new, and
Hmm.
kind of like what you see in the movies a little bit, probably not as hardcore, because it's like an officer training program, but
Hmm.
everything was brand new. And so it was just kind of a little bit of a culture shock at first. But I think the main thing for me was that the lack of sleep was the most difficult for me.
Hmm.
So, I'm someone that needs like at least 6, 7 years or 6, 7 hours
Yeah. Yeah.
of sleep to just kind of like function. But, your time is very precious in ODS because you have a very strict schedule that you have to follow. And then towards the evening, you get, a set amount of free hours. But during that time, you're really rationing, like, okay, we need to like do our laundry, we need to polish our shoes, we need to like study our Navy gouge sheet, like all this stuff. And so for me, I think that was the hardest part, just not getting enough sleep. And I'm going to be honest with you, those lectures that you sit in pretty much like almost half the day, they are very dry. It is, not colorful, and it's very like military.
Hmm.
And so you can't fall asleep. They don't give you coffee. I think they awarded us coffee maybe like week 3, but I'm pretty sure that was like decaf. So I think that was like the most difficult part, was just like finding that energy to, stay awake during those lectures.
Mm. That's actually interesting because I've heard certain dental students, because I've been going through some interviews and been able to talk to some dental students. They're talking about how some nights they don't get much sleep at all, how they're up to like 2, practicing or whatever. So is
Yeah,
it less sleep in ODS?
I don't think so.
No,
I
okay.
once I graduated dental school, I was like, it's like over. I don't have to deal with, studying like late nights, overnights, things like that. So I think it
Mhm.
was getting out of that zone and thinking like, oh, it's gonna be great. And then you're like, they're like, do push-ups, go to the sand pit, it's just like kind of getting thrown everywhere kind of thing. Yeah.
Would you say that, because you just mentioned the push-ups, like would you say that the physical component is quite heavy, or would people need to be like in shape heading into it, like in very good shape, or um, what was your perspective on that?
Yeah, so there's a variety. You have like those people that are hitting the gym all the time, like you can tell they work out, or you have, your long distance runners, sprinters. I mean, so there's a big variety. Not everyone's going to be like super amazing for their physical training, right? But they're not here to make it punitive, just that you aren't able to do like 50 sit-ups or something like that. So initially when you get there, you do like kind of like a pre-test to see where you're at, okay? And then hopefully by the end of the 5 weeks, when you do the actual like physical readiness test, you're able to see improvements, and that's
Mhm.
the main thing. But I would say definitely if you're going into ODS pretty soon, I would try to maintain an active lifestyle. Like I did a lot of like circuit training, a little bit of like weightlifting, running. You're going to run
Mhm.
a lot. So I would say, mentally and physically kind of prepare for that. But once you get there, and let's say you don't pass the pre-test, don't feel bad about it. They put you on, this fitness enhancement program, which we call FEP. And basically, it's just like an extra time during the day that they help these groups of candidates to, improve on themselves so that they can pass the actual PRT at the end. So yeah, I would definitely try to become a little more active before, so it's not too much of a shock.
Awesome. Well, personally, this year I'm trying to learn how to play hockey because I've always been a fan, so I would say I'm somewhat active, like I do rollerblading, and I, try to stay in shape. But one thing I've always dreaded is running. So perhaps maybe I need to start getting into the practice. It sounds like a little bit maybe, but yeah, yeah. Hey guys, just wanted to give you a quick reminder about the Instagram live Q&A session, Ask Me Anything session we're doing with Dr. Lee on Friday, October 30th. So follow us both on social media. Again, our handles on Instagram are supermonica world and crack.the.dat. So follow those. And once that session is done, we are going to be offering one lucky person 100% off their Crack DAT membership, and also a 15% off discount for all of the non-winners. So follow us, keep posted, and you will be able to hopefully reap some of those awesome rewards. So probably a big question for a lot of people interested in HPSP is just in terms of safety and comfort, because a lot of people maybe who don't have military backgrounds might not understand what being in the Navy entails. So maybe if you could talk about if you feel safe on a Navy base, and if you have any instances where you might have had the opportunity to go abroad on a ship.
Yeah, so in terms of security and safety, absolutely. I don't feel like I'm at risk every time I go onto a base. It's probably one of the safest places, there's so much security and armory and things like that. So you're gonna feel safe. It's safe. Now, when you swear into your oath and you sign that contract, you don't want to make that decision lightly. Yes, it's nice that they're going to pay for school and you get a little bit of a stipend during your dental school years, but you really need to know what you're signing up for, essentially. So if you join the Navy, we have ships, we have carriers, we have all these things. So it's a possibility that you can be assigned on a ship. It's a possibility that you can go overseas. Now, again, when you work with your detailer and you let him or her know, like, these are my choices, I really don't think right now it's a good time to go on a ship or overseas, whatever the reason is. Maybe it's medically affiliated, or you have a dependent that needs you, or you're expecting a family, things like that. They're gonna work with you, okay? But I don't want people to think like, oh, just because I want to go to a shore duty command, that's all I'm gonna do, because it does work for some people. Some people never go overseas or on a ship, but it is also a very big possibility. So without going into too much detail, I was in San Diego for a year, and now I'm in North Carolina for a 3-year billet. And so essentially I wanted to stay close to my family and my fiance on the East Coast. And so I wanted to stay on a shore duty clinic over here. So, but very, very recently I learned that I'm going to be deployed next year. So it can happen. And I don't want people to think like, oh, I'm never going to be in that situation, because wherever the Navy needs you, you need to go. And another thing that people may not know, so you might initially be accepted as a Navy officer. So when you switch billets, sometimes you go green side, which is the Marine side, and we call it blue side. So when you're green side working with the Marines, you're attached to a unit at a command, basically. And let's say, all hell breaks loose, we go to war, and then they suddenly need to deploy these units. Your main job is to support those units. So if they have to go to war, then you have to go with them in support of them. I mean, you might not be at the front lines, but in those situations, usually dental officers, they're in charge of triaging patients. So let's say something crazy is happening and you're going to be in a tough situation where you might be the person that dictates this person needs to be medically treated and this person's probably not going to survive. So that's kind
Mm.
of like a very intense, like extreme situation of possibly deploying. But, I just want people to know that you could be deployed on a ship or going overseas.
Of course, of course. I mean, definitely, yeah. Like you said, it's definitely not a decision to take lightly. But so, barring a war, I mean, are there, for example, if you were on a ship like for a tour of duty, do you know like the timeline of that? Would it be a couple months or longer? Can you speak on that at all?
A little bit. So it really just depends.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the ship cycle, and depending on where the ships go. And there's so many ships, both on the West Coast, the East Coast, overseas. So
Mm-hmm.
some you might be out on sea for a couple months and you come in, they maintain the ship, fix it, repair it, and then you might be on your way again. So it really depends on the ship's schedule and the needs of the Navy at the time. And especially with the COVID situation, it's been kind of weird. Sometimes, you think you're going to be out for X amount of months, but they might say, hey, we're not ready. You guys need to extend, or maybe you come in earlier. So it really just depends.
Interesting. Okay, so transitioning a little bit to where you are now in North Carolina, right?
Yes.
Yes. So I was just wondering, as a dentist, what your typical day is like. How is your practice set up, and who you work with? And also another question would be, do you exclusively treat people in the Navy, or do you also treat family and dependents or any other civilians as well? I'll just hear about that.
Yeah, really good question. So if you were to take COVID-19 pandemic out of our schedule, I'm sure
Mhm.
it's a little bit different. I know we're pretty busy. As of right now, because of that, there's a lot of limitations on what kind of dental procedures we're doing right now. So it's a little different than what it's supposed to be like. But right now, as of during the pandemic, so I'm at one of the smaller clinics. It's probably a team of, 5, 6 dentists all around, our age, around the same ranks, lieutenants. And so a lot of the times we're doing a lot of exams, okay? And the reason why is because as a dental officer, your main objective is to make sure, if you're working with the Marines in this case, that they are dentally ready. So you're going to hear that term thrown out a lot, dental readiness. Like, that's our main objective, to make sure that if these units are deploying suddenly, we have to make sure like all their urgent care needs are taken place, so that they're not out there and they have like a huge abscess in the field and it's life threatening. So you're doing a lot of exams, making sure that they're dental ready. And then once we're going through a bunch of these exams and we're caught up, we'll start, actually doing the treatment plans with operative dentistry, restorative, and things like that to take care of them. That's kind of the main chunk. We're doing a lot of exams right now, and then a lot of operative, some oral surgery, just to make sure that they are uh, deployable, basically. Mhm.
Awesome. And so, in terms of how it's set up, you mentioned 5 or 6 dentists, dental officers. Are there also, do you work with assistants or other kinds of dental professionals, or is it only the dentist there?
Yes. So basically, the dental officers are kind of who run the clinic. And then, of course, you have, a team. You need a team to make sure that your clinic's functioning at the
Mhm.
best, right? So, yeah, we have also civilian assistants, civilian hygienists. We have active duty hygienists. We have, corpsmen that are helping us. And so it's just kind of a motley of different individuals. It's kind of like private practice, honestly, just with uniforms and different collaterals and things like that.
Mm, mm. So my next question would just be, in general, like, are you glad that you embarked on this program? Are there any regrets that you may have had? And also encompassing that, are there certain types of people in certain situations that you would not recommend this to, or that you would recommend this to?
Great question. So overall, I would say that no, I don't regret making my decision on pursuing, military dentistry. I think in the beginning I was a little anxious because I didn't exactly know all the little details that were going to happen, but I mean, to this day, I'm still learning the ins and outs of, how the Marines function, all these acronyms. I'm like, what's that, you know? And that's okay. You know, people know that, and you shouldn't be scared to reach out for help or guidance on that. But overall, I think with where I'm at in my life, I'm pretty happy with my decision. You know, it's really relieving to know that I don't have that financial burden at my age, and I don't have to worry about that for years and years to come. And also, I've been experiencing something that you probably can't experience in the civilian world, doing dentistry in the military. And now that I'm going to be going overseas for a little bit, like it makes me a little bit nervous, right? And, you know, a little difficult to know that I'll be away from my loved ones for a little bit. But at the same time, there's a sense of adventure, a little, you know, just like, well, let's see where it takes us. This is a brand new chapter in my life. I think it's going to be a really great experience as a dental clinician and just as a person, right? Looking back one day. So yeah, I don't really regret it at all. But just going to your second question on
Hmm.
who shouldn't join or who should join, I don't want to label anyone that's, you know, XYZ. I don't think you should join because of that. Unless you're really physically incapable of being able to perform dentistry or anything like that. I think it's always, you know, obviously don't make this decision lightly. You know, it's a commitment that you're going to make not only to yourself, but people that are surrounded in your life, right?
Hmm.
So, you know, it's a commitment that your family's going to have to support if you have a partner, etc., your friends. And so, you know, once you make that decision, I don't think you should be scared of, you know, is this the right thing for me? Because everyone's going to have to push their boundaries a little bit. They're going to have to, you know, come out of their comfort zone, because without that, there's no progression, you know, no personal growth. So I don't want to label anyone like, oh, I don't think that person should join. So if you think like this is the right path for you and you're interested in serving your country through this way and, you know, gaining these experiences as a Navy dentist, why not consider it?
Awesome. So I know one consideration you briefly touched upon there was family members and close ones. So I probably should ask this earlier, but I thought of it now.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like your day-to-day life, I mean, on weekends, do you have time to spend time with loved ones if they're close by, or is it like what's your life like outside of the workday? If you have like still time to keep in touch with people.
Yeah, so this is really going to be based on your clinic and your location, obviously. Uh,
Hmm.
Place I'm at right now, it's very like private practice. You go into work from, you know, 0700 to 1600. You're treating patients. You have a little bit of a lunch break, but I don't think I've had a day where I went home and I took work to home. So, you know, you're going to have a lot of time to explore the city you're in. And, you know, with the military, you're going to have benefits of getting major holidays off. And so you can definitely take advantage of that. I mean, minus, you know, COVID travel restrictions and things like that on a
Right.
normal day, you're able to take vacation days pretty freely as long as you work with your clinic. And yeah, you definitely have a normal life and you can definitely enjoy your personal life.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
So another question I had was just, for you personally, Dr. Lee, your future plans in both dentistry and in YouTube. Are you planning on continuing both? And just, I'd love to hear what the future has in store.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned before, YouTube is purely kind of a hobby for me. I don't think I'm going to be that popular to pursue a career in YouTube. I mean, that'd be really cool as a
Yeah.
fallback plan, but I don't think that's probably going to work out. But I definitely want to continue it because I just found that, you know, initially when I was making stupid skits in high school, like that was just fun for me. But I feel
Yeah.
like I found a nice niche right now to just be kind of a source of information for, you know, pre-dental students or college students or just, you know, people out there in general that might have an interest in pursuing like a Navy dentistry track. And at least for myself, I felt like at the time of application, I really didn't have that much information to, you know, ask someone at the time. So it's been nice to be kind of someone in that position to help someone out like that. And I'm more than willing to continue that and definitely become motivated when I hear back from one person that's like, oh yeah, your ODS video was really helpful. And I'm like, really? That's awesome. I'm glad I helped at least one person out. So in terms of YouTube, I think I'll just continue to just make little videos like that. And going back to, do I want to continue to pursue my dental, dental field in the military? I don't want to close any doors as of right now. And, I'm only serving year number 2 out of 4 of my active. And so a lot can change in the next 3 years. And so I don't know, maybe ask me in 3 years.
All right, sounds good. Maybe we'll have another podcast episode then. Right, awesome. Well, I mean, definitely in terms of, your YouTube channel and being able to be a source of information, I mean, I definitely find that to be true personally. I mean, like I mentioned before, I really enjoyed listening to you. And before I wrap things up here, Dr. Lee, thank you so much for having us here. And probably the last thing I would just ask is any final words of advice for anybody pursuing dentistry, specifically pursuing the HPSP route, even pursuing a YouTube channel. If you had any, you could, tackle any of them, all of them, whatever you want to do, but, just any final words of advice you may have.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Mon, for having me on your podcast. It's the first time I've done it. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm so glad I was able to be your guest here today. Yeah, so for anyone that's pursuing any kind of track, whether you're interested in becoming a dentist, a military dentist, a YouTuber, I think the main thing is just be genuine to yourself. Even though you might fail the first time, don't let that be something that deters you from trying, especially if that's something that you've set your mind to and you're saying like, this is my passion. Then just, work your butt off, honestly. And, with hard work, there's going to be, a good outcome for you. So yeah, and don't be scared to reach out to people. I'll always be here as a resource for anyone that just has, any questions. No question is stupid for me. So, just reach out to people and just don't lose that motivation.
Awesome. So as she mentioned, if you have any questions, definitely stay tuned because we'll be doing a live session where you can ask any question you want. And Dr. Leah so graciously agreed to appear on that. So stay tuned for those details. And thank you so much again. I mean, this is awesome. Honestly, a genuinely interesting conversation. I feel people will learn a lot from it. You've been a great source of information, for me personally, but also I hope for all the listeners out there who would be interested in this information. So yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Iman. And yeah, I can say the same for you too, to be, doing this outlet for all the pre-dental students and dental students out there. So greatly appreciated.